Hey, good morning. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. Man, I'm having some weird technical difficulties going on this morning. What? Technology? I don't know. Hey. Well, you know what? We can just go jump in it anyway down here, Dream Creator Studio. What's going on, everybody? Y'all doing good? We're gonna fix this thing in just a hot second. I don't know what's going on here with my controls on this here program, and that's all right. We're gonna fix it. Hope you're doing okay this morning. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Wow, thank you all. Last week we were Long Beach Gives. Thank you all who participated in our 12-hour online giving marathon. There were a lot of people that came through, just bounced right into our broadcast and gave us greetings. A lot of you gave donations to our nonprofit, and we appreciate that. You gave to our partner nonprofits out there, the Arts Council for Long Beach. Thank you so much for that. Wasn't that a fascinating discussion with Violet Brown from the Music Retail Legendary panel? Violet Brown, Kelvin Anderson from VIP Records, Jocelyn Pryor. It was just really a great conversation. Before that, we had the executive director of the Arts Council for Long Beach, and she brought, man, heat. Americans for the Arts. The lady was from, what's her name? Ruby Lopez Harper, Vice President of Equity for Americans for the Arts. She came to us from Washington, D.C. And then we brought Sister Dr. Bria Heidelberg. She was from Drexel University. What a fascinating discussion we had all about the arts. Arts are an essential service of our recovery. That's what we say. Today, we want to get you motivated, want to get you up, running. It's our season of greatness. That's what they're saying. And I know the season of greatness is, for the women, for the sisters, all power. But because I know our guest and I know the spirit that she has as she writes, you've seen her columns in the, Sentinel, Los Angeles Sentinel. She's got a blog on wendygladney.com. She's just a really, inspiring woman, a woman of God, and I just really wanted to invite her on today to chit chat with us, sip some coffee, or as she says, she's sipping some tea, and that's all good. And get our week started with some inspiration, because we're faced with a lot of stuff out here. Some of y'all might be, doubting yourself, second guessing, all that there. We want to get past all of those obstacles and go towards our season of greatness, right? That's what I think. All right, Coach Wendy, good morning.
Good morning, Greg J. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Look at you. It's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you always. I just have so many memories of us in the community together over the years. And so when you
Yes.
reached out, I was excited to be on your show. And I love your intro. It is so good. Awesome.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. We over here just creating new broadcast paradigms.
Yeah, that's what it's about. We have to learn to pivot, when
Yeah.
things change, in order to stay abreast and being relevant.
Mhm. All right, so Coach Wendy, you
Yeah.
know, how do we get to our season of greatness? What does that mean?
Well, I have to share something with you, first of all, because you did say that it's for the women or for the ladies. Yes, a lot of things that I've done and historically do are centered around women, but Season of Greatness and the work I do also has included the men because, we're in this together. And if we don't realize how to get to where we're supposed to be and where we're going, it affects the whole family. So,
Sure.
I'm all about the men too,
That's right.
but my specialty is women.
That's
So
right.
let me get started and share with you.
Okay.
So, first of all, when it deals with your season of greatness, you have to first start with three words. There's three words that I kind of focus on in anything I do, and it's meaning, message, and mission. When you understand your meaning in life, why you're even here, what is your purpose, of being here every single day, why you get up and all of those things. So your meaning. Once you understand your meaning, then you'll be able to develop your message, which is basically what you go out and say and do every day on a regular basis. And then by knowing your meaning and your message, you'll automatically carry out your mission, which means purpose. So in order to have your season of greatness, you have to first understand why you're here. What are you supposed to be doing? So that's how I get started in helping people to understand their season of greatness.
All right. So then what about the people that will say, you know what, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to find that. How do we find it? And then is it because we are unwilling to do the work that's required, or what, how do we find it?
Well, a couple things. So first of all, you have to think about, what do you naturally gravitate towards? What is it that you enjoy doing that brings you some level of happiness and joy? Because oftentimes, whatever that is, there's a thread that will tie into what your purpose is. So for example, I remember years ago, I was part of a women's Bible study organization where we were starting to talk about, basically what was our purpose and our mission. And I remember someone said, Wendy, you know what your gifts are? Your gifts are the gift of hospitality and encouragement. I used to say, what kind of gift is that? I mean, anybody can be hospitable or encourage somebody.
Yeah.
I wanted a gift of, singing or prophecy or, music or something that to me, I thought was, those are really gifts. What kind of gift is hospitality and encouragement? But you know what, Greg J? That's exactly what I've done my entire life, is something around hospitality and encouragement. Wow. So when I think back over my career, I started out in the community as an event planner. What's an event planner? An event planner is hospitality. It's basically welcoming people into something, making sure they have a good time and that it's done, correctly. And then encouragement. That's the other thing I've always done, is try to encourage people on their journey, help them, to understand they're not out here alone, that they have somebody that cares, whether we start with family, because it all starts at home, or people in the community, or even strangers. So when you stop and think about, what is it you like to do? So even if I was to flip the script onto you, I would say, what is it that you really enjoy doing? Now, I've known you for many years. And when I think about Greg J, one of the things I think about is, being in the community, making a difference in the community. You've always loved some level of music, even if it's behind the scenes, and making sure things happen correctly. So when I think about that, you have the ability to make a difference and to change environments by, what you're doing, music related, or now technology and podcasting. So I would start with making sure people understand why they're here and what is it that they enjoy doing, and that will help them. Now, part two, and because I know this is a conversation, so if you want to butt in and say, Wendy, hold on for a second.
Right. Just tell me. Don't worry, I will.
Okay. So the other thing is, you mentioned something about, what if they don't want to do the work? Now, what's really interesting is something that goes kind of from a hobby to a job, or a hobby to a profession, or I call it, it's hard for me to even say a job, because when you get up every single day and enjoy what you do, it doesn't mean you don't have challenges, but you don't look at it as a job in the same way anymore. At least I don't. And most people I know that enjoy what they do. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have deadlines and we don't have things we have to get done, but you enjoy them because it is part of what you've been called to do. Yeah. Now, especially as I'm getting older. I just turned 60 this month, so I'm in a whole, different generation, and also a grandparent, and just enjoying life in a different way. Sometimes you have to stop and think about, which I think a lot of people get stuck even early in life, is where good is good enough. You know what I mean? Some people don't want to go to great. Some people don't really want to put in the work, the effort that it takes in order to be great, because to be great, it does take a commitment. It takes time. But again, one of the things that I think about is when you're doing something that you've been called to do and it's stirring in your soul, then it takes on a different factor every single day as it relates to how you approach that day. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to let you ask a question.
It's interesting because people, doing the work that's required. It's one thing for folks to say, okay, you know what, I love this, I love that, I want to do it, I want to do it. But then when they get into it, they find out there's some extra work in there, in order to do those things,
Mhm.
and then they quit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a part of me that I really, we have to just have to do the work that's required. That, to me, that's one of the pillars of success. If we see it and we say, okay, if we can visualize it, we know we can do it, but we've got
Mhm.
to do the work.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's interesting because when I talk about season of greatness, and I work with the women that have been a part of, we've kind of been on pause for a minute because of COVID, because
COVID.
we were doing so many things in person, but we're going to flip that, real soon, and do some new things. But when you're talking about your season of greatness too, there can be more. You can have greatness in multiple seasons. So what I
Mhm.
mean by that is, when I think back to my younger years, when I was in my 20s, and when I was in my first marriage and I had my children, that's a whole different season, because now you're trying to, figure out, how do I be a mother? How do I
Yeah.
be a wife? Okay, then now you're trying, like, how do we buy a house?
Yeah.
How do we do the things, So that's one season. That's a specific season in someone's life. But then now let's say you get into your 40s, because 20s and 30s kind of roll together. In 40s, kids are getting older. They start to go to college,
Mhm. Mhm.
there's just different things that happen. So we're redefining what does our season of greatness look like depending on what season we are in
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
Um, for me, when I think about also seasons of greatness, especially when you are following the journey that God has for you, they're building blocks upon each other.
Mhm.
So it's easier to roll into the next season when you've kind of been following what you should have been doing in the first place. So, for
Sure.
example, I no longer am an event planner,
Mhm.
which is what everybody always knew me as.
Mhm.
Um, but now what I do is I'm a coach and I'm a community relations consultant. So, but all of that came out of also building those right relationships when I was doing event planning.
Mhm.
So when I was doing event planning, I got to know a lot of the people in the community. I care about the community. And so I was able to build heart to heart relationships with people that end up flowing into when you go to the next season of your life. And
Mhm.
then, I'm also blessed because I get to write for the Los Angeles Sentinel. I get to write for the Inland Valley News. I also get to write for my sister's magazine called Sweet Life, SoCal Magazine. So, I've had different opportunities to let my voice be heard in the community to the point where the community knows that I care. Well, that takes time. That doesn't
Mhm.
happen overnight.
That's
So
right.
sometimes we have to also realize that as we're building our season of greatness, what are you planting now that
Yeah.
you hope to harvest later in life?
Mhm. I really like you calling it heart to heart relationships. That's very accurate description. You build these relationships, right,
Yeah,
and the people flow with you as you go through these seasons, as you describe.
right, right.
And let me ask you now: can your season of greatness outshine your current position? Like, how do we know that we've outgrown a situation? You might be satisfied in ex- existing in a certain space, right? But
Hmm.
because of everything that you've accomplished and everything that God keeps growing, the seeds that He's planted into you, and then all of a sudden you're bigger than your current situation, but you still stay.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting point because, so for example, this morning in my devotional time, I was reading something in Proverbs 31 Woman. It was a story by Tony Evans,
Mm,
Pastor Tony Evans' daughter,
mm,
and she was talking about how there came a time when God was pruning her as relates to moving her from the current level of ministry activity she was doing.
mhm,
And she said she didn't want to move because she was comfortable. So it
mm,
was very similar to what you said. She was comfortable. She said, but because she was obedient. So then there comes a time when we have to think about, are we being obedient to what God is calling us to do when we say our lives are God led, and which I do, I say that my life is God led. So sometimes I may not understand everything, but if I'm willing to submit to what He has for me, then, He'll guide my footsteps. But one of the things that she said was, if she had not been obedient, and was willing to get out of that comfort zone,
Mhm.
she would have not been prepared to do some of the things that happened in her life as relates to, she said some things happened with her husband and children,
Mhm.
that if she had been so tied up over here, um, doing the ministry work that she was doing, she may not have been able to be what her husband and children needed.
Mhm.
Now, let me say this, Greg J, and that is, sometimes we get caught up and get confused thinking that, we're in our season of greatness only if we're making a lot of money, or if we're famous, or all of those things.
Mhm.
But that's not true.
Mhm.
Season of greatness is personal. Season
Mhm.
of greatness is all about your personal journey of
Mhm.
what you were called to do.
Mhm.
Now, I'm also a firm believer that your gifts will make room for you, and that your gifts will provide. In
Mhm.
terms of, I have been a witness my entire life how God has taken care of me and has
Mhm.
provided for me, whether I was a single parent or married, in terms of taking care of our family and the
Mhm.
needs. And sometimes I didn't understand it. I felt just like the two loaves,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
the fish and the two loaves, and that, okay, wait, there's more money left. How did that happen?
Mhm.
I mean, with all
Mhm.
but it happens. Now that
Mhm.
doesn't mean I've not also had times of want, because I
Mhm.
have. But
Mhm.
I'm saying that season of greatness, you have to know when to be comfortable,
Mhm.
because that's your season to be in, as relates to, there's so much on your plate.
Mhm.
My son and my daughter-in-law, I just had their third child. I watched them a few days ago, and I'm telling you, I understand why children bearing is for the young, because it is not easy watching a newborn, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old all at the same time.
Oh, that's
So
some work.
that is a whole different level of work. So there you have to understand, maybe I have to be comfortable right now, right where I am,
Mhm.
because it's not my season to go out, but I can also be great as a mother or a grandmother or whatever it is that you are at that time. So you have to ask yourself some real questions as relates to, am I being lazy?
Mhm.
Sometimes we're lazy, and don't go do what we need to do about something. Or am I just being still in the
Mhm.
moment of where I
Mhm.
am?
Mhm. Mhm. How do we overcome fear though? It's like sometimes, we want to do things and all the stuff that you've been talking about, right? And then we look at the prospect, is that what I'll say? And we're
Mhm.
like, ooh, that'll never happen for me. It's like
Yeah.
this fear happens.
Mhm. Yeah.
How do we overcome that?
Well, I mean, again, the famous acronym FEAR is false evidence appearing real.
Sure enough.
So, it's there's something I'm kind of studying right now as relates to some of the work I do, and it's called the imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of times, and they say usually women suffer with it more than men, but men also do suffer with this. Is that when certain things start to happen, is similar to the question you asked a little while ago about, what if, let's just say, things are moving faster than you're ready, or like sometimes how we hear about celebrities that their fame grows like this and they're not
Mhm.
really ready,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it's happening faster than they maybe were thinking it was going to happen or something. Well, the thing about fear is, um, when we feel like we're not prepared, when we feel like, it's like they say, what is the definition of luck? It's when opportunity and preparation meet hand in hand. But
Yes.
then sometimes we get that, and then like, okay, now what? Like, how do I?
Right.
They're gonna always feel that I'm, a fraud.
Right.
Maya Angelou once said that every time she had a book that came out, she was scared that they were going to figure out that she really wasn't a good writer, and
Uh,
neither she was. So,
right.
we have, those are personal demons and personal things that we deal with. But every time you do something and you're successful at it, it helps open the next door. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? You just have to
Mhm.
keep doing it. You have to keep, and understand that you're not the only one that ever thinks that way or goes through that.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
sometimes think, oh my gosh, I'm the only one that feels this way.
Right.
Mm-mm. No,
Right.
most people I know that have done really well in life, they've had some season in their life where they feel like, oh wow, can I really
Mhm.
do that? You
Mhm.
know, but and then also that's what's important about having the right team around you. You don't want yes people that just say, yes, Greg, you're doing
Mhm.
great.
Mhm. Mhm.
But you do want the right people to say, you know what, Greg, you did a good job today, but this is how we can maybe go to a whole different level, because
Mhm.
they have your right interest in mind. They really care. It's not condescending. They're not putting you down, but it's about helping you grow. And when you have that right support system, that right team, and do the work. See,
Mhm.
that's the thing is sometimes because falling into something can only last so long. Because there are people who fall into stuff. We know that.
Sure, sure. It's interesting. So that's because sometimes you see opportunities, you're like, oh, well, I'll never make that one. But then what comes in my heart all the time is like, says who, you know, and that
Yeah.
there's that, what about the haters though? You're right. You could surround yourself with the right team and you have people who admire you or who'll call you out of the blue to say thus and so and give you the support. But there's a lot of haters out there for no reason.
Yeah. That's just a fact of life.
Yep.
And I would say the more success you have, or the
Mhm,
more public you are, or the more money you have, you're going. I would say money that people know about, because sometimes
mhm,
people have money you don't know about it.
mhm,
But I was going to say the more people will come out of the woodworks,
mhm,
and you have to know how to kind of sometimes close a blind eye,
mhm,
keep moving, and wish them well, wish them
mhm,
well. I mean, I've had truthfully, Greg, I've had some haters that publicly came and let me know that, and but I still tried to show kindness, and I still
mhm,
tried to be genuinely, authentically nice. Now, that don't mean you have to kiss their bottom. It
mhm,
doesn't mean that you have to stay in a certain situation. But when you pass them, in other words, when your paths cross and you have to interact or whatever, be respectful, be kind, be gentle. And then some you'll win over when they see you do really care, and some you won't. And
mhm,
that's just a fact of life. And you just
mhm.
keep on moving, keep on
Keep
going.
keep your eye on the prize.
Hmm.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. That's right.
yeah.
Wow. You know, uh, I'm laughing because we're talking about envy, and I saw this piece. It was Minister Louis Farrakhan, right? And he was
Hmm.
saying envy is the cancer that is destroying the black community. And
Hmm.
I said, wow, that's really a profound statement. Cancer, often is a silent killer, right? And so
Yeah.
envy the same way. We look at each other. I mean, if we're in a space now, especially since the murder of George Floyd, where I think, we talked about our love for the community, right? I think the community is now self-reflecting. There's this transformation that is occurring right now within our community. And I think that if we begin to nation build within the community and reassess where we are, we're building together. This notion of envy, we really need to talk about this because it can stop us and kill us,
Hmm.
silently. We envious of each other,
Hmm.
and meanwhile, the other folks are getting what's out there for them.
Hmm. You know, um, Part of that is about personal responsibility.
Mhm,
Usually, when we have, I would say, where we feel envious of someone, it's
mhm,
usually because we've not done what we need to do in our own lives.
mhm,
Because
mhm.
that means you're spending too much time looking at someone else. You know what
Someone
I mean?
else, yeah,
And you should be looking at yourself. Like, what do
yeah.
you need to do? How
Mhm,
can you make a difference? And then again, instead of looking ahead often in terms of an envious thing, look back and see who else you can pull along with you.
that's right.
you know Bring somebody with you, because when you are helping, it's like something I heard and read a long time ago, is that when you're in the process of trying to help someone else, it takes your mind off of your own self, in
Mhm,
terms of those types of battles, those
mhm,
types of demons. And you know, use it more as encouragement to catapult you to,
mhm.
wow, if she did this, I can do that.
That's
You
right.
know what I mean? Just kind of like you were saying not too long ago, you mentioned something about sometimes you'll see something, an opportunity, and you'll wonder, oh, can I do it? Well, why not?
That's
So if there's something that somebody else is doing, that you really want to do it.
mhm,
Just do it. And we know who says that slogan. Just do it.
yeah.
And then if it's really meant for you, it'll be amazing, the doors that will open up for you and the things that will happen. But if you're jumping, because some people jump a lot too, where they'll see like, oh, he's doing that, she's doing that, maybe I can do this. Well, what is it that you really want to do? That's why I say go back to your
Sure.
meaning, message, and mission. Stay
Mhm.
centered, stay focused. Now, that doesn't mean you can't try some new things. So, for example, if you think of Paul Newman, he was known as an actor, but then he started a salad dressing, and some other stuff.
I was at the store the other day and I'm looking at his. I think he had a coffee or a tea now, and I hadn't noticed that before.
I, don't-
I was like,
yeah,
"This dude is dead. He's been dead for time. He's still making money."
yeah. And so, but what probably happened from when he first did the whole salad dressings, and I was looking at
Uh-huh.
that, it was all about his commitment to environment and some things he wanted to do to make a
Right.
difference. And so he figured out a way to also make it as a profit for him, and a
Mhm.
profit for, I think he was giving a percentage to charities and stuff,
Mhm. Mhm.
or let's say Oprah Winfrey. We know her in the beginning as a talk show host. Well, we
Yes.
also know she became an actress, a magazine magnet, I mean everything, that she touched, but she still had her core of where she started that is still part of everything, the television shows. So she's a television personality that then turned that into other businesses. So I think when you find your core, for me, my core is really helping other people. I mean, at the core, that's really what it is. Whether it's someone who needs a helping hand for a moment, somebody that needs encouragement, somebody who needs a roadmap and a coach to help them get there, whatever it is, it's still about helping people.
Mhm.
Now, then how I take that in order to monetize it, in order to take care of me and my family, then that's part of going back to that, your message and your mission. But my meaning is about touching people's lives, making a difference, helping them, better their lives in different ways. Because sometimes it might be somebody needs a financial helping hand. Somebody might need a shoulder to cry on. Somebody might need direction, like, okay, how do I get out of this, quagmire and start something else, so
Mhm. Yeah,
depending on what.
yes. Service is key. I mean, that's the key to everything that I do is all about service. Service
Mhm,
is essential
mhm.
to my life, and you know what you were talking about remaining focused, and they always say like if you're running a race, the minute you look over to see who you're running against, you lose a step, and then they got you. Boom, got to.
You fall back.
Yes, yes, that's
Mhm,
really
mhm.
something, man. Man. After George Floyd and everything, Wendy, I'm interested to see, as someone who has such a wide view of our community, what do you see happening at the spiritual level of our people? How did you feel after you watched the murder George Floyd, and then you saw the subsequent, protests and everything that was happening? How we were all thinking and everything, and people like you with just such a rich spirit, healing spirit, and that's the contribution to the community. How do you, just describe to us what you see and where do you see us going?
Well, Greg J, that's an interesting question because I'm also a mother and a grandmother, of boys and girls, but specifically around our young men, because of George Floyd, based on your question. But of course, we have the Breonna Taylors. We have
Mhm.
other examples that also include our girls, that are wrongfully killed and situations that happen to them. But let's just stay specifically for a moment on your specific question around George Floyd. So, as a grandmother with young men, because we have two sons and two grandsons, my husband and I. And so my heart was aching, first of all, because the fact that we have to teach our children every day, how they have to protect themselves when they go out, that
Mhm.
other people oftentimes take for granted that they're going to come home that day, no matter what. And that we want to make sure our children live to come home so that we can then figure out how do we handle a situation if they've been, unjustly done, and things have happened to them. They've got to first come home. So when I was watching all the things that are happening and getting involved in my way, because there were things I got involved with and participated and helped and did as well, it's like a cycle. I started thinking about my grandparents, especially my grandmother, who was firstborn generation free in our family on my father's side. And people think, how did that happen? Well, my grandmother was born at the turn of the century, around 1900, but her father was born around 1862. So, she was firstborn generation free in our family. And she came from the South, moved west, just like they talk about the Great Migration and so forth, in order for a better, time, possibilities for her children and future generations. But think about what they went through, the sit-ins, the water fountains, the jails, all the things regarding the movement that some of the work that I got a privilege to work with, like when I used to do the events with SCLC, understanding that history of what was that, what was SNCC about? What was SCLC all about? What are these organizations did they used to stand for? And even now, because there's been a transition when we think about Urban League, and all the different NAACP, just all of our organizations. So one of the first things I thought about is we still need them. We still need these organizations. Some of the way that things are approached will be different, but we still need them. You were talking about from a spiritual perspective. Spiritually, that's a tough question. And the reason why I say that is because the way that I think the current generation sometimes approaches their spiritual well-being, their spiritual life is different than maybe some of the older generation. I'm still very traditional. I go to a church. Well, right now we're still in COVID a little bit, but churches are opening up again. But I still like kind of that old school Baptist church, because that's the way I was raised. And I feel more connected, to the congregation, to the community, to the pastor, so forth. I think sometimes some of that has gone in a different site, in a different way, because we used to look at our ministers as our leaders. Some people still do, but, the younger generation, not so much the same as the way we did. So from a spiritual perspective, and then how I felt, because I went around the barn, as my grandmother would have said, to get to the heart of your answer, is that I was devastated. I cried a lot because my heart was aching for the young people today and in the future generations, that so much is having to be repeated that so many of our forefathers already even died for. And how do we continue to move forward in a positive way versus stepping back? You didn't ask me this question, but I'm going to step in and talk about this for a second, because one of the things that's also really bothering me, that's really come out over the last couple of years since all the Black Lives Movement happened and police, the enlightenment of police brutality and so forth, is the division. And they were saying it's now not just becoming a division between political parties. It's very evident that there's a division across a racial line. And how do we deal with that? Because just looking at me, you can tell that, I'm mixed. So I have white and black, and I have grandchildren now, white and black and so forth, that, and then there's Latino in my family, and American Indian and Asian. I mean, because we're a very, multicultural family. So how do we deal with that healing across even the racial lines and that division, even within parties, that something as simple as the American flag, and I don't know what it's like in your neighborhood, but in my community out here, where the American flag that should unite us all together, in some people's eyes, they're using it as a dividing factor as relates to what side of the fence do you sit on. And I don't think, this is just my opinion, so I'm sorry if I offend any watchers on your show today, but
no worries.
I don't think that you have to hate police to love Black Lives Matter, because, all police are not bad. And we need some level of policing. But what we do need is to make sure there's accountability, that there's training, that there's sensitivity, that there's understanding, and that there's reporting when things are wrong. I didn't see this, but somebody shared with me, I think it was even my husband, shared with me the other day that there was something that came off on TikTok. See, I don't watch TikTok, so I got to get on TikTok. But on TikTok, that there was a police officer that stopped. There were a police officer that stopped a young man, and another police officer came to the scene, went to check the car, and was planting some drugs. Did you hear
Yes,
about
yes,
that?
I heard that. I heard about that. Yeah.
But somebody was videotaping it. It got caught. Long story short, they ended up arresting the cop, and let the gentleman go because it would. But why does it have to be caught on tape before people believe certain things? You know what I'm saying? So there's just so much, Greg J, that I think that we as a society are going to have to deal with, especially even within our own community, to be held accountable, self accountability to how we move forward and lay the foundation for our future generation.
It's interesting out here on Coffee Conversations. We've really been intentional about sharing both sides of the story. And I learned that when I was at the radio station. You would have all of these situations and circumstances, but you have Black cops out there that, that are your friends, right? And so, okay, what do you have to ask them, well, okay, what are you feeling in this certain situation? And you hear the stories and you hear, what they're feeling and doing the duties of the badge. And
Right.
you're right. Look, we need the police out here. Okay. So let's just face it. There's some bad actors and stuff out there, but we try to give that balanced view here at Coffee Conversations. It's been pretty productive because it is all about our community. There's
Mm-hmm.
brothers and sisters wearing the uniform out there who are going through it, who are, keeping us safe. There's
Yeah.
also bad cops and all of that up there.
Yeah.
We are concerned about our children, though. I
Yeah.
got grandsons. They're now just turned 19. But
I don't
when
believe
they
it. I don't believe it. You don't have a grandchild 19. No, you don't. Keep going.
yes. So, but it is a very deep, nervous feeling when you send them to the store. Hey, go give me a bag of rice, and they, you're wondering, okay, how is it going to make it back? And
Yeah.
that's a real thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny. I got an inner chuckle when you were saying, asking about my community. So, after I left the radio station, I'm out here in Long Beach, California.
The
My
LB.
Yes, my office is in a very, very diverse community. I'm in circles now that are more diverse. Outside of the military, I don't think I've ever been in such a diverse situation.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of people, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, and it's actually a beautiful thing, because I've met some really, really cool people. I may not agree with them, but
Mm-hmm.
I, have just still been, really blessed to, you know, encounter such really cool people who are doing things in their various, great things in their various communities. And I
Yeah.
think that, what the city in Long Beach strives to be is very inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are people out there who do not want that inclusiveness, and it does often manifest itself along lines of race, and
Mm-hmm.
it's real crazy sometimes. So we're left wondering now, okay, we can't run away from it. We just got to keep our eye, like you said earlier, got to keep focused and keep, just doing the good work, and love will always win in the
I
end.
was going to say, I
Love
think
wins.
good will always triumph over evil, but it
Yes,
doesn't mean evil doesn't have a season because we've been
yes.
talking about seasons,
Hmm,
you
hmm.
know. Um, but it's about never giving up. And so
Yeah.
for me, I will always be an advocate for forgiveness, always be an advocate for healing.
Hmm,
One of my mantras is healing without hate. It's a choice,
hmm.
it's a lifestyle. Pass it on, which means you have to make a choice every day that you're going to do your part in healing of society, of the community, in a family. Because it's easy to just say, I don't need that, give up, whatever. But what are the ramifications, for future generations? I remember years ago, when I was in my 20s, and I was going through growing pains. And for people who know my history, I went through some challenges with my parents growing up, and so I don't know, I was going through a period where I was, I don't want to say lost, but I guess I was kind of lost. I was in my 20s, and I was going to make some choices that I would have regretted later in life. And I remember I was going to see a Christian psychologist at the time, and you're talking about like almost 35 years ago, where we in our community didn't talk about going to see a psychologist, or psychiatrist for some people, because it was like, oh, well, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Well, need a little help, kind
Yeah.
of thing. But I remember when I was seeing this particular psychologist about some issues of my childhood and some things I'd gone through. And he said to me, he said, well, Wendy, you need to make the difference. You need to be the difference. And I was like, why do I have to be the difference? Why do I have to be the one that, steps up and does this, that, or whatever, based on what I was talking to them about? And he said, because if you don't, who will? And if you don't, what is that going to do as it relates to affecting future generations? And at that time, I had my daughter. I hadn't had my son yet, but I had my daughter. And, and so for me, I had to stop and start to think about that, because there is a responsibility that we really all should bear and carry as it relates to a couple of things. Number one, if we bring children into this world, then we have a responsibility to them. Number two, just the fact that we are here, whether we have children or not, we should care about what happens after we're gone as it relates to how we leave this world. And did we leave this world a little bit better because we were here, or is it worse because we were here? So I gave that a lot of thought. And so that also ended up helping me navigate through tough times, as well as how I would make certain decisions moving forward.
Such a deep, we have to take time to really search ourselves. And just sitting here listening to you, I find myself, what is it, taking inventory, right, even now. And I hope somebody out there who's watching it live, or even as you get it on demand, will do the same. This is great conversation, just we got to retool ourselves, reassess constantly, and keep on the positive road. All right. So, you opened another door here when we were talking about, when you were talking about churching, and, church is different now, isn't it?
And even to the point where, because of COVID, there's going to be a lot of people that get stuck. When we were younger, and when I would say, what do they call them? Tele-evangelists.
Yes, yes.
Television evangelists were beginning, and TBN was out there. I mean, all these different stations, and people started, just watching television as church, and they were called bedside Baptists, or different names, because you stay in the bed and watch it or whatever. Well, I think there are certain people that are also falling into that because of COVID. And one of the things I heard a long time ago is, church isn't something you just do. Church is who you are, which means that we have to. It's about a responsibility of the fellowship. Because our salvation is not based on, what church we go to in terms of if we go to church. Salvation is about accepting Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, and it's personal. But church is about the fellowship. It's about, hey, how you doing today, Greg? And, there may just be a word of encouragement that comes from someone that you're sitting next to at church, or you wave to across the hall, or you go down to the fellowship hall, or whatever you do. That doesn't happen when you're just watching it on a screen. So, church is about family. Church is about fellowship. And that's part of what I think we are missing. And it's part of what I've missed, from COVID and so forth, is that fellowship, is that family. And also a level of accountability. And that's why it depends on what type of church you go to, because, but you get what you put in, just like everything, because I've been going to a larger church with my daughter before COVID. And you can get lost when you go to a large church. It's easy to kind of like, hide or whatever. But when you're in a smaller church, and the pastor, and the pastor knows your name, and different people know who you are. If you miss a couple weeks, all of a sudden the phone rings. Excuse me, Sister Wendy, where are you? Where you, what you doing? Kind of thing. So, that accountability to help you with your walk as well. So those are the types of things that I think sometimes are a little different than when I was growing up. When I grew up, my grandmother, going to church was not an option. I mean, no matter what you did on Saturday, Sunday, we knew exactly where you were
You
going
gotta
to.
go. Yes,
I
gotta
mean,
go.
and also the type of environment with my grandmother was, it wasn't just about just Sunday either. I mean, we had junior red circle, sunshine band, choir practice, then you had to go to prayer meeting. I was like, is my
All
whole
this
life
stuff.
church,
Right, right, right.
but it gave me the foundation that really helped sustain me through a lot of the trials and tribulations that I have been through in life, that sometimes people don't have an anchor.
Yeah.
People need an anchor.
I think I think especially in this time of COVID, and we've talked to we've had a few folks come on coffee conversations who who have are pastors of large congregations, even across the country, and we've had these very deep conversations about how the church life has evolved. And now, what's got me is, because being online has been so amplified under COVID, now you are seeing so many of these gossip media, church gossip, social media. It's just messy, And I was talking to somebody recently, and I said, this is why people are leaving. I think the church right now is like the young generation coming up behind me is not as interested in coming and getting that fellowship anymore, because we're seeing too many crazy shenanigans. It's a turnoff now, where people are saying, what, I ain't trying to come to church, and they get a richer experience, a richer worship experience, unfortunately, through the online Zoom service. I can just see it online and keep it going.
Yeah.
This is the change that I think we're seeing, and I don't know if we're ever going to change it. But I know there's a study coming out. I read yesterday. I can't remember who was doing it now. Somebody's doing a study now on how to reach the next generation, because they recognize that church membership and church attendance and becoming spiritual through your church membership um, is just declining, rapidly right before our very eyes.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. I understand exactly what you're saying, but then that's where we also have to make sure that, we're following the word of God, not man,
Mhm.
that, man is the vehicle, whoever is the leader of that fellowship or that shepherd over that flock. But our eyes need to stay focused on God, and that's why it's important for us to spend time with God every day. Now, you
Mhm.
said something a little bit earlier when you were commenting on something I said, and that is that it was making you think. You know, Sometimes we can get so caught up with the busyness of life that we're really not taking care of the business of life.
Mm.
And as it relates to specifically around the spirituality of what we're talking about right now, the business of life is sitting down and having prayer time, your own Bible study, getting to know God for yourself. The busyness can be just going to church and
Mm.
hiding in it
Mm.
and so forth, because you're busy. And oftentimes when we're busy, no matter what it is, um, where and I can be guilty of it too, because I'm a list person. I make lists every day, and I love crossing off stuff,
Yeah,
you
right.
know. So it's for some people that's busyness, and now for me, I'm taking care of business because I got a point to all of this. You know
Mhm,
what I mean?
mhm,
'Cause that's what I'm
mhm.
doing. But the point I really want to make about it is are we running? A lot of times people are running from something. I
Mm.
remember when I was a little girl, my dad used to say a saying that I didn't quite understand at the time, but as I got older, a lot of things become clarified. And that was, he would say, what you think you're running to is often what you're running from. So,
Wow.
you know, oftentimes what we think we're running to could be exactly what we're running from, but we
Mm.
haven't stopped long enough,
Mhm,
to really think about, what do I need to do to make this better? What do
mhm,
I need to do myself in order to be in a better place or
mhm.
whatever? So we're just running, 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 thinking that if we just get to the next thing or do the next thing, oh, the light will come on, illumination, No, sometimes we do need to pause. We need to sit still. And I was guilty of that a lot, Greg, as relates to I wouldn't even stop for really enjoying. like time off or
Mm-hmm.
vacation, because I thought, oh my gosh, that I got something else I got to do kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now I will enjoy my vacation. I will enjoy time off because I understand now the importance of refreshment. It
Yeah.
refreshes you, to get back out there and do the things you have to do, because eventually, if you don't take care of yourself, you will get weary. And how the word says, don't get weary in well doing, but you will get weary because you're not taking care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, the word of advice I would give on that is just like, just be careful. Are you taking care of business, or are you just being busy? You
Mm-hmm.
know, are you running to something that really is right here, what you're really running from? And do some self-reflection, like you were just saying. Self-reflection is so important. But some people aren't comfortable with themselves, being by yourselves. It's like my husband and I were talking about how we can have so much enjoyment just knowing that we're in the same house together, or sitting in a room and we're not talking. He's
Mm-hmm.
doing something and I'm doing something, because you enjoy that space, that presence. You're at peace. You're comfortable. You know. Whereas oftentimes, if you always have to be doing something or always have to be talking, I mean, talking's good, but if you always have to do that, are you covering something up? What are you scared of facing that you might need to face? And if you face it, it might help you in everything else you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Self-reflection. I mean, that's the foundation of all of this. As we got to get ourselves balanced there. I'm there. I'm really all about. I think if we've been forced. What I'm trying to say, we've been forced to learn how to come to those comfortable spaces, how to, be comfortable with our loved ones now. That's why folks aren't even wanting to go back to work. The job is saying, hey, come back to the office. And folks are like, nope, I'm okay in my little space with my loved ones. I'll do the work
Some,
from here.
some, because
So,
there are some people that can't wait to get away from, home. But
uh,
then you have to think about, what are you dealing with? What is it that you need to
mm,
face if you really need to, try to get away from your,
mm,
as you would say, your loved ones, and want to get
mm.
out of there. Now space is good for everybody every now and then,
That's
go take
right.
a walk or whatever. But in terms of where if you can't even, enjoy the time with your children and your spouse and your family,
Mhm.
that's a whole nother conversation with a cup of
Yeah.
coffee.
Right. And then there's a lot of times it takes time to get used to staying still,
Mm-hmm,
right? So it's like, wow, this is really great stuff.
mm-hmm.
Man, Wendy Gladney, you are always have been awesome. You're even more awesomer.
Great, we go way back.
Ooh,
We
Lord of
go way
mercy.
back,
Yeah,
you
we
know.
do.
And every
Yeah,
time
we
I
do.
think of you, I smile,
That's right.
as
Me
it's been
too.
a
Yes.
genuine relationship.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and we've been there with each other in the highs and lows. I mean,
That's right. Yep.
people sometimes see people out here doing stuff and they think it's always perfect. It ain't.
It ain't
It ain't.
perfect. Come on now.
That's when you have people that you hold hands with one another and say, "We'll get through this.
Yeah, that's
We'll
true.
get through this."
True. Okay, so Wendy, tell me, you have books? I know you got the column that comes out in
Oh
the Los
yeah.
Angeles Sentinel.
Yeah. I still have my very first book, which is called The Preacher's Daughter in Memory,
Okay.
which is about, matter of fact, I do have one right here. It's all about my life story of overcoming, sexual abuse from my father and
Mhm,
abandonment from my mother.
mhm,
And it's called The Preacher's Daughter because my father eventually became a minister and a pastor of a church, and he did change his life. So it's also a story of redemption
mhm,
and how God's love, and how also I remember as a child, my grandmother used to always tell me to pray for my father and pray for
mhm.
my mother. And we underestimate the power of prayer. We say we're going to pray for somebody, but when God actually does a miracle, we're like, how did that happen?
Right.
Excuse me, prayer. And
Yes.
then my second book is called Forgiveness Change Your Life Forever.
Mhm,
And it's really just a little, they call them pocket books. It's a little handbook
mhm,
that, so it's not too thick or anything, but it has good tips in talking about how when you learn the power of forgiveness, how it can really change your life in a positive way. Because oftentimes when we're holding on to unforgiveness, it's like we're drinking the poison, but expecting somebody else to die.
Wow.
It's controlling
Wow.
us. And I have a lot of quotes from people, especially around our community, that have contributed to the book where they talk about something that they had to learn how to forgive about. So it's a great little pocket book. And then finally, I am working on my third book that I'm hoping will come out in 2022.
Wow. All right. Keep
And
on
that book will be
striving.
all about seasons.
Right, right. Okay, well, that's what's up. That's what's up. Okay, what's the website? WendyGladney.com? Is
That's
that
it.
that's it? Okay,
WendyGladney.com.
I'm gonna put it in the chat for y'all to get in there and call Coach Wendy for the find out about your season of greatness. I just think it's really, really important right now
Yeah,
that we have this discussion with ourselves, right? Because a lot of things we're holding, sometimes we're our own worst enemy, right? We're just fighting, having self-doubt and all of that. And these things can weigh heavily on our health. It can
true.
affect our progress, and we can't live to the fullest potential that the Lord has for us. I just really believe that. Look, the word says, eyes have not seen nor ears heard the things the Lord has in store for those that love him. If you really
Amen.
just think about that particular verse right there, y'all, who knows what will happen? I could be a skillionaire. I'll be up there with Elon Musk this time next year. You never know.
And what God really has for us, if we do what he tells us to do, and then he can trust us with what he wants us to have and do, it's amazing how we can affect the world. And again, it's not always just about how much money, but it's also about influence. It's about resources. It's about time, because time is the only currency that you can't get back.
Right. That's right. That's right. That's
Mhm.
right. That's right. And then just your through you, the love and light is shown out through this whole world, and we can overcome all this evil that we see right before us. Every day you're waking up, it's something on this news.
Mhm.
Something that you can feel it in the air sometimes, just walking down the street. But it
Mhm.
is the love that comes through us that will overcome all of that. And we're in the time where we need all the love light we could get.
Amen.
Yes, yes,
Amen.
that's right. That's right.
Mhm.
All right, there you have it, y'all. Wendy Gladney. I'm so happy to see you this morning. This is great. I saw
Thank
you. I
you.
said, let me reach out to Wendy and say, come on in here and sip some coffee or tea
I got it right
and,
here. I was ready for you.
and chop it up about our season of
Mhm.
greatness. Any last words you want to
Jake,
say to
I'm
the
here for
people?
you. I was just going to say, I'm here for you. Thank you for all that you continue to do for the community. Thank you for being a light. Thank you for your smile. Thank you for caring, and thank you for reaching out.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Y'all can see this. If you didn't see it live, that's okay. It'll be there on those Facebook pages, about 10 of them on there, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. It'll be on demand at Beach City Radio, beachcityradio.com. Then we're going to repurpose the audio version. That'll be on the podcast, wherever podcast you get them. Look, Apple, Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeart, Google, who else? Deezer. It's all of just
I mean,
put it
there's
in
so
there.
many.
Coffee
There's so many
conversations
now.
with Greg J. It'll pop right up. It's got the coffee beans of Africa and says coffee conversations. Just check out the audio there. Whew. I think I've done everything,
Thank you
y'all.
so much.
Thank
And if
you.
there's anything I can do for you, Coach Wendy's here.
You got it. You got it. All right, y'all. Remember to love one another today. Love one another. Love one another. Love one another. Peace and blessings.